Hi guys, it's Mark Zicree, author of the Twilight Zone Companion, and today is your Twilight Zone Minute. The episode we're talking about today is The Chaser, with a script by Robert Presnell Jr., based on a short story by John Collier. Now, if you've been watching these Twilight Zone Minutes, you know that when Rod Serling went over to Ray Bradbury's house and said, "Teach me about science fiction," Bradbury pulled out 4 books, one by himself, one by Richard Matheson, one by Charles Beaumont, and one by John Collier, and said, "Read these." And so this is the only story that is based, the only Twilight Zone episode based on a John Collier short story. John Collier was one of the great writers of British fiction and wrote a lot of sort of stories similar to Roald Dahl with kind of like twist endings or little snappers at the end and so forth. His work is collected in a book called Fancies and Good Night that you can check out. And but interesting, there's another little fascinating part to this episode. Most of the early Twilight Zone episodes were science fiction, alien invasion, space travel, time travel, that sort of thing. But certain ones were out and out fantasy, and this is definitely one of those because this is about a man who desperately loves a woman who doesn't care about him, and so he purchases a love potion from a mysterious professor named A. Demon. And so stars George Grizzard as the hapless lover, stars John McIntyre as the professor, and it stars Patricia Barry as the object of his affection. And it's just a fun little story. It was directed by Doug Hayes, and he, of course, directed great episodes like Eye of the Beholder and Howling Man and The Invaders. This is a lesser one, but fun. It's got a kind of a humorous take on things, but entertaining. Doug asked for a vast room of high bookshelves and got it, even though it was an expensive thing to build, and he was grateful to Rod and Buck Houghton for that because they gave him what he wanted. Additionally, it's fascinating because many of the Twilight Zone stories were original with Serling or drawn from science fiction stories, either adaptations that Matheson and Beaumont were doing of their own work, or alternatively, like for instance with The Hitchhikers, it was an adaptation of a radio play by Lucille Fletcher, and it was a radio play that Serling had heard when it aired. But in this case, interestingly enough, Robert Presnell was a very well-known film and TV actor. Robert Presnell was a very famous TV and film writer, very well-known. And in 1951, for the Billy Rose Theater, he had written this adaptation of The Chaser by John Collier. And so Buck Houghton had worked with him on Schlitz Playhouse, as had George Clemens, and they obviously knew about this script and acquired it. Because, scripts that had been performed during the days of live TV, that was almost like they were performed on stage. No one would see them in later years or decades. So this was material that they could use on Twilight Zone and have be fresh to the audience that would view it, and certainly to us now, 60 years later. So that's about it for The Chaser. It's a fun episode. Everyone's good in it. John McIntyre's particularly good. He was married to Jeanette Nolan, who would later play various roles on Twilight Zone. She was always excellent, as was he. And tomorrow we'll do another Twilight Zone Minute on a different episode. So if you want more, go to twilightzonecommentary.com. And that's it for now. Bye, guys.